Hello and welcome to The Explainer. You know, every time you stream a movie, shoot off an email, or just scroll through your social media feed, you're tapping into the cloud. But what is the cloud, really? It's not just some invisible force. It has a physical home, and that home has a very real and very large environmental footprint. Today, we're going to deconstruct that footprint, and we're basing this explainer on a fantastic report by Virtualization Options LLC. They're a technology research and advisory group based out of Colorado. So, let's get into it.
So, let's start with a really basic but important question. Where does the internet actually live? It's not floating up in the sky. The answer is much more down to earth. It's inside massive, humming, incredibly powerful buildings scattered all across the globe.
And these buildings are called data centers. They are the physical heart of our digital world. Think of them as the engines of the internet, these huge, critical hubs that store, manage, and process the unbelievable amount of data our society now runs on. They are the backbone.
All right, so here's our roadmap for this explainer. First, we'll take a closer look at the internet's physical home. Then, we're going to peel back the curtain on its hidden environmental cost. After that, we'll explore the amazing innovations pushing us towards sustainability, look at the global pressure for green policies, and finally, talk about the path forward to a sustainable digital future.
Okay, let's kick things off with the fundamentals. We need to really understand the critical role these places play. They are quite literally the backbone of our entire digital existence. And their role is just massive. They're what power the cloud. They're the engine room for huge innovations like artificial intelligence and the Internet of Things. They drive huge sectors of the economy, create jobs, and of course, they enable the instant global communication that we all pretty much take for granted today.
But, and this is a really big but, all of this incredible power and convenience comes at a price. So now we're going to pivot and look at that hidden environmental cost, a cost that's growing every single day, right alongside our hunger for more data.
To really wrap your head around the sheer scale of this, just follow the money. The global market for data centers is projected to soar to $227 billion by 2027. This is not some small niche industry. It's an absolutely colossal part of the global economy.
And that huge market is just fueling absolutely explosive growth. We're looking at an expected 40% annual growth in the construction of new data centers. That means more buildings, more hardware, and a much bigger demand for energy year after year after year.
And what do you put inside all those new buildings? Servers. A mind-boggling number of them. We're talking about roughly 30 million new servers being installed every single year. That number alone just shows you the immense consumption of resources needed just to keep our digital lives humming along.
Now this is where it gets really, really interesting. Where does all that energy actually go? Well, running the actual computers, the IT equipment, takes the biggest slice at 40%. But look what's right on its heels. Cooling. A staggering 35% of all the electricity a data center uses is just to keep the servers from overheating.
And that desperate need for cooling brings another major cost: water. Over half, a full 55% of a data center's water usage goes directly into its cooling systems. You can imagine the huge strain this puts on local water resources, especially in areas that are already dry.
So all this energy, all this water, it adds up to a pretty significant carbon footprint. Globally, data centers are responsible for about 0.3% of all greenhouse gas emissions, which might not sound like a lot, but in a really highly digitized country like the United States, that number jumps way up to 2% of the entire nation's emissions.
And the impact doesn't end with emissions. We also have to talk about the growing crisis of e-waste. You see, servers don't last forever. When they get replaced, the old ones become electronic waste, which is full of nasty stuff like lead and mercury. Managing this is a huge challenge, and a lot of it sadly ends up getting shipped to places that are completely ill-equipped to handle it safely.
Okay, I know that all sounds pretty dire, but here's where the story takes a turn for the better. The industry is very aware of these challenges, and that push for sustainability is driving some truly incredible innovation. It's all about building a greener digital future.
So how do they do it? Well, it's not just one magic solution. It takes a multi-pronged attack.
Sustainable design is built on a few key pillars: bringing in renewable energy, developing advanced ways to cool things down, recovering waste heat, and really embracing the principles of a circular economy. Remember how cooling was that huge energy hog? Well, it's become a major focus for innovation, and some of these solutions are honestly straight out of science fiction. We're talking about immersion cooling, where servers are literally dunked in a non-conductive liquid. There's even geothermal cooling, which uses the stable temperature of the Earth itself to slash energy use. Pretty cool, huh?
And this brings us to a really powerful idea. Instead of just blowing all that hot air from the servers out into the atmosphere, what if we captured it? What if we repurposed it? This waste product suddenly becomes a new resource. It can heat nearby buildings or even generate more electricity. Now that is the circular economy in action.
Now, all this innovation happening inside the industry is one half of the equation. The other half, that's the external push coming from governments and from us, from the public, who are all demanding more sustainable practices.
Yeah, governments are definitely stepping in with a whole range of policies to try and speed this shift up. We're seeing mandates for energy efficiency, carbon pricing schemes that basically make it more expensive to pollute, strict targets for using renewable energy, and rules that make the manufacturers themselves responsible for their e-waste.
And believe me, these regulations have real teeth. It's becoming more and more costly for companies to ignore them. In fact, the average financial penalties for environmental violations have jumped by 20% just in the last 5 years. That creates a really powerful financial reason for companies to go green.
So where does all this leave us? Well, the path to a truly sustainable digital world is a shared one. The responsibility doesn't just fall on the big tech giants, it involves the industry, the government, and even us as individuals.
At the very heart of this whole transformation is a shift from a linear to a circular economy. The old way was simple. You take resources, you make something, and then you throw it away. The new model is all about reducing what we use in the first place, reusing what we can, and recycling what's left. It's a fundamental change in mindset.
And every single one of us has a role to play here. Our small collective actions really do add up. We can reduce our own energy use with efficient devices. We can make sure we recycle our old gadgets responsibly. We can advocate for change in our own communities. And we can vote with our wallets by supporting companies that actually prioritize sustainability.
And that brings us to our final thought. The cloud, the internet, our entire digital world, it's not abstract. It is intensely physical. It's built out of steel and concrete and rare minerals, and it runs on immense amounts of energy and water. So the big question for all of us is, how will we choose to build it from this point forward? Thanks for watching The Explainer.